The rain poured over the city like tears falling from heaven. In the middle of that chaos, beneath the golden lights of a luxurious hotel, a young woman stood trembling. Not from the cold, but from fear and heartbreak. Her dress clung to her body, soaked from the sudden downpour, and her trembling fingers tried to wipe her face dry. Her mascara had run, her lipstick had faded, but what truly broke her wasn't her appearance. It was the humiliation waiting for her inside. Just hours ago, she thought she was finally getting a moment of happiness, but fate had other plans. Her name was Lena Carter, a simple woman with dreams far too big for the small world she came from. Inside that hotel ballroom, a lavish engagement party glittered with crystal chandeliers and the scent of roses. The man she had loved for 3 years, her ex-boyfriend, was getting engaged to someone else, and not just anyone. It was her own cousin. She had been invited only to make it seem less awkward, to make the family believe that she had moved on, to play along as if her heart wasn't shattered into 1,000 pieces. But the truth was, she hadn't moved on. She hadn't even begun to heal. And as she stood outside that grand entrance, watching luxury cars pull up and elegant guests step out in dazzling attire, she realized she was about to walk into a battlefield unarmed. Until she saw him. A tall man stepped out of a sleek black car, his presence commanding attention even in the rain. The valet rushed to take his keys, but the man hardly noticed. His tailored suit clung perfectly to his broad shoulders, and his eyes, sharp, deep, unreadable, met hers. For a second, the world stood still. She didn't know who he was, but something about him made her heart race. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe the universe was playing a cruel trick, but the words slipped from her trembling lips before she could stop them. "Can you pretend to be my date for tonight?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and fate's mysterious ways, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories that touch hearts like yours. The stranger paused, studying her face as if searching for the truth behind her trembling plea. She expected him to laugh, to walk away, to call her crazy. But instead, he slowly nodded. "All right," he said simply, offering his arm. And just like that, Lena walked into the grand ballroom beside a man she didn't even know, pretending to be someone she wasn't, with a heart that still belonged to someone who had already let go. As soon as they entered, all eyes turned toward them. Conversation stopped. The chandeliers shimmered overhead. But all Lena could feel were the stares, the whispers, and the judgment that followed her every move. Her cousin, glowing in an expensive gown, froze mid-laugh when she saw Lena walk in with the mysterious man. Her ex-boyfriend's smile faltered too. For the first time that night, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in months. Power. The man beside her gently placed a reassuring hand on her back, leaning slightly closer, as though shielding her from the invisible daggers being thrown her way. The scent of his cologne was comforting, grounding her in that surreal moment. He didn't speak much, but his quiet confidence spoke for him. Every gesture, every glance felt intentional, protective, kind. He introduced himself to the hosts with an easy charm, speaking just enough to make it believable. "I'm Ethan," he said. "Lena's date," people whispered. Some smiled awkwardly, others exchanged shocked looks. Lena's ex forced a laugh and came forward to shake his hand. But Ethan's gaze was calm, unflinching, the kind that made lesser men hesitate. As the evening went on, Lena tried to keep her composure, but inside her emotions swirled like a storm. Each toast, each congratulatory speech felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Her cousin's perfect smile felt like betrayal. Her ex's arm wrapped around someone else's waist felt like salt on a wound that refused to close. At one point, unable to take it anymore, she excused herself and walked out onto the balcony. The rain had stopped, leaving the city lights reflecting off the wet streets below. She leaned against the railing, closing her eyes as tears finally spilled. She didn't hear Ethan walk up behind her, but she felt his presence. He didn't speak right away. He just stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking out at the same city that had broken and rebuilt countless hearts before theirs. Finally, he said quietly, "You didn't ask me my full name." She turned, confused, wiping her tears. He smiled faintly. "Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Industries." Her breath caught. Everyone in the city knew that name, the billionaire philanthropist, the man the media called the Ice King. "I don't usually do things like this," he added, "but when I saw you out there, I recognized that look, the look of someone pretending to be fine when their world just fell apart." Something in his tone softened her defenses. She didn't know why, but she found herself telling him everything. How she had loved someone who never valued her, how she sacrificed everything for a future that vanished in one afternoon. Ethan listened, not interrupting, not judging, just listening. When she finished, he simply said, "Then tonight, let's make sure they see what they lost." They went back inside. This time, Lena wasn't trembling. She smiled genuinely, laughed softly, and let Ethan lead her to the dance floor. The music wrapped around them like a gentle breeze. As they danced, people watched, not with mockery, but with curiosity, even admiration. She was glowing again, not because of revenge, but because someone finally reminded her of her worth. For the first time in months, she felt alive. After the party, Ethan offered to drive her home. The ride was quiet, comfortable. When they reached her small apartment, she thanked him awkwardly, unsure how to express her gratitude for what he'd done. He only said, "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me one thing. Never let someone else decide your value again." And then he was gone. Days turned into weeks. Lena returned to her job as a florist, trying to move on, but Ethan's words lingered in her heart. Sometimes she'd look up from her shop window and imagine that black car passing by again. One afternoon, as she was closing the shop, she found a bouquet of lilies, her favorite, left on the counter. No note, no name. Just a business card tucked among the petals. Cole Industries. A few days later, she received a call. Ethan was hosting a charity gala and wanted her to design the floral arrangements. She hesitated, nervous, but something inside her said yes. When she arrived at the event, she saw him across the hall, surrounded by powerful people. But when his eyes met hers, it was as if no one else existed. He walked over, smiling genuinely this time, and said, "Looks like we're meeting again under better circumstances, working together over the next few weeks." Lena began to see the man behind the title. Ethan wasn't just successful, he was kind, thoughtful, and surprisingly humble. He shared stories of his own struggles, of losing his parents young and building everything from scratch. They connected through their scars, through the quiet understanding of what it meant to rebuild after breaking. Slowly, something unspoken began to bloom between them. He'd stop by her shop more often, sometimes under the pretense of ordering flowers, other times just to see her smile. She found herself laughing again, dreaming again. But old wounds have a way of testing new beginnings. When her ex showed up at her shop one afternoon, apologizing, begging her to take him back, Lena froze. For a moment, her old self, the one who always forgave, always settled, almost resurfaced. But then she remembered Ethan's words. She looked her ex in the eyes and said quietly, "No, I deserve more than someone who only remembers my worth when someone else sees it." Ethan arrived just as her ex stormed off. Without a word, he walked up and gently took her hand. "You handled that perfectly," he said softly, and in that moment she realized he wasn't just her savior from that night. He was someone who saw her strength, even when she didn't. Weeks later, they stood on that same hotel balcony where she once cried. Only this time, she wasn't alone. The city sparkled below, and the night air felt different, warm, full of hope. Ethan turned to her and said, "You know, that night you asked me to pretend, I didn't realize I'd be the one falling for you." Her heart skipped. She laughed through tears, whispering, "And I didn't realize pretending could ever feel this real." He smiled, reaching for her hand. "Then maybe we stop pretending." And when he kissed her, gentle, certain, full of everything they both thought they'd lost, the world seemed to pause. That night, under the city lights, two broken souls who had once met by accident began writing a new story. One not built on pretense or pain, but on the quiet magic of second chances. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Every small gesture helps us spread more love and hope through our stories. Before you go, comment below. What would you have done if you were in Lena's place that night?